Before you hear the next conversation, I'm inviting you to join this community to heal, to grow your self awareness, to get to know yourself and in turn get to know others. All I am asking is for you to click and subscribe. I would absolutely love your support. Thank you so much for subscribing and being part of this incredible community. I can't wait for you to hear this next conversation. Check it out. Hello and welcome. My name is Tiffany Farag and welcome to Get to Know You Cafe. Why is knowing another person deeply important? In an age where superficial interactions dominate our lives, the ability to authentically connect with others is becoming increasingly rare and invaluable. If you would like to master the art of getting to know others, take a look at our course. Link is available in the show description. In my mission to open conversations and access deeper dialogue, I want to hear from you, listeners, on last week's question and discussion. Last week, Bernadette Kirwan and I discussed the question, what are the cultural differences when it comes to child abuse? We received a number of responses that further deepened dialogue. Today, I'll be discussing the episode and the responses that we received. Well, firstly, I'd love to thank Bernadette so much for coming on the podcast. What an incredible conversation it was. It was so amazing to have her in the studio and for us to dive deep into this really incredible vulnerable conversation. And it's such a topic that has just, blows my mind, the amount of research I was doing and the amount of physicians even and health professionals that couldn't distinguish or couldn't understand when a child was being abused, and the amount of people and the percentage that were actually doing something about it and were reporting it or chasing it up or doing actually something was so small. So that for me was quite alarming to read all these findings and read this research that's done on countries around the world, including Western countries also. And it's absolutely just like horrific. It's absolutely horrific that a lot of the child abuse, you know, gets forgotten. Like how many cases where it's never come up or it's come up and then 20, 30 years later, you find out that there's been some child abuse and sexually, mentally, emotionally. It absolutely like blows my mind. And there's so many people that it's still like, it's a secret. It's still a family secrets and still, people haven't come out and said anything, or everyone's tried to, throw it under the carpet and like it's never happened, or to me, or it's not happening currently. So for me, it's really horrific to read these things and hear these stories and to know of stories like Bernadette's, and it's just not everybody has the ability to get out of that as well. So I don't know. We need to, as community, as adults, and educate ourselves. We need to take steps and take action. Like, as we were mentioning in the conversation with Bernadette, even when you tell people or tell relatives or tell adults, everyone's like, oh, they think number one, the child's lying, and number two, they want to sweep it under the carpet and want the child to be lying. And they don't like they almost make out that the child is the perpetrator. So like for me, that's just and I know for many of you sending all these comments, and we got some incredible perspectives and comments and questions from around the world. And I'm so glad that everyone's being part of this conversation. And yeah, I think we need to do more about this. It needs to be. I don't know. I honestly don't know. What do you guys think? Like, what can we do? What other things can be put into place for us to take steps and to take action? Especially, everything needs to start in your own families for you to make changes in societies. Like, look at your families. Like, ask your family. I know it's going to bring up some things and some hidden secrets in families, but speak to your families and find out, like, what's and bring it up as a discussion. Even like if this was happening, what would we do, or what should we do, or how would you know, or like what would you investigate? Like that's the biggest thing that Bernadette mentioned. It's like, hey, even if you think the child's lying or whatever it may be, investigate, find out, don't sweep it under the carpet. So yeah, it's just such a a big topic, an important topic, and there needs to be more. Things need to be more things need to be happening. Thank you everyone for sending in your responses. We have some from Bangladesh, Toronto, and Egypt. So our first response is from Sohag from Bangladesh. Sohag says, when it comes to families that are abusers, it seems that most child immediately is brainwashed that they are the liar. This is heartbreaking. Absolutely, Sohag. Yeah, it definitely is. I don't know why the child's brainwashed that they're the liars. I don't know why adults, even family members, cousins, brothers, sisters, parents, I don't know why the child is made out to be a liar, or you brainwash the child that no, that didn't happen. No, that didn't happen. You're brainwashing your child that it didn't happen. Like, you don't know if that didn't happen or not. Like, investigate. So yeah, it's totally, heartbreaking, and I can't understand it. I can't understand people who do that to children, and I can't understand the people that want to, make out that it didn't happen and not actually do something about it, and then something needs to happen to the person doing it. They need to be held accountable for their horrific behavior and horrific action. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Sohag, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. Our second response is from Mel from Toronto. Mel said, thank you both for your vulnerability. I love that you both have a very close relationship with your grandparents. I did not get to see mine growing up. Well, yes, thank you so much, Mel. And yes, it was nice to relate with Bernadette. We both have this really close relationship with our grandparents. As you heard on the podcast, my grandparents both passed away. My grandfather 5 years ago, my grandmother last year. Um, and it was beautiful to connect with Bernadette and her grandparents. They're still here, and I know she was talking about how she doesn't know what she'll do, and yeah, it definitely was honestly the hardest thing that I've had to, for me. I knew it was something that I knew that I'd struggle with from a young age, and it's something I was dreading from a young age. Like, I used to be dreading, and I mentioned in the podcast, I used to be almost like praying when I was a little kid, like I don't want to be here when it happens, because they are my world, and they still are my world, and I still speak to them out loud, and, and some hope that they're able to listen. And they're everything to me, and I have my grandmother's jacket that sleeps next to me in bed, and I wrap it around me, and it gives me comfort, that she's close by, and I honestly do feel her inside of me. And yeah, she was my best friend. She's my everything. She's, more than a grandmother to me. So yeah, for those who don't have that opportunity. Yeah, it's definitely something that I cherished, and yeah, sorry that you don't have you never got that opportunity, Mel, and to others. Like, if your grandparents are alive and they're around you, and you can see them, like, spend time with them. Like, honestly, like, my best conversations, my everything, like, the I'm so lucky to have had my grandparents. Like, they made life incredible for me, growing up, and their experiences, their lives, and yeah, I wouldn't be here if my grandfather and grandparents didn't immigrate to Australia. There's many things. They're my back, they're my support, they're my heart, they're my world. But yeah, for those, if you have your grandparents still alive and you're fortunate enough, spend time with them, get to know them. Our third response is from Mina from Egypt. He said, sometimes I wish there was surveillance cameras around, our children, to stop anything like this from happening. You know what, Mina? I honestly think about the same. Even, for those reasons, and for just, like, for people, I guess, trying to hide the truth, or trying to hide these horrific things that they're doing, or that they lie about. Like, honestly, sometimes I wish the same. Like, if there are surveillance cameras in family houses, for only the family to see. It's not for, I know people like, oh, but the government or people. No, just for the family to see. You're like, oh, did that actually happen, or was that actually said? People would be harder for people to lie about it, and yeah, you wouldn't make it so obvious where the camera is. But It's something, or maybe you should make it obvious. Honestly, I just thought of that now. I'm like, what if people knew that there are cameras in people's houses? They wouldn't do these things, or they try and do them in, in more sneakier ways. But yeah, I don't know what steps need to happen. I don't know what needs to, what actions need to happen. But we definitely need to be doing more than what's happening already now. Like there needs to be more done. There needs to be, because these stats and these research that I'm reading, it's just horrible. Like it's horrific. So yeah, whatever I think ways that you thought of or you think of when you have these discussions with your family, please send them through and we'd love to open the conversation up even more. Well, thank you so much everyone for being part of these cafe discussions. It's always great to hear perspective for everybody to add to the conversations. And I always love to say it has nothing to do with intellect. We all have different experiences, come from different backgrounds, live in different environments, and we think of different questions. So when you hear a question that you haven't heard before, it really opens a part of your brain that you're like, wow, it makes you think about how this applies to you and your behaviors and your thoughts and how it applies to others. So thank you so much for everybody for being part of these cafe discussions. I'm looking forward to next week's cafe episode. Thank you for listening to Get to Know You Cafe. If you enjoyed this podcast, rate, review, and share the podcast on Facebook or Instagram. You can tag me at Get to Know You Podcast. Be sure to listen to Tuesday's podcast and send in your responses for us to include next Thursday on the Get to Know You Cafe to further deepen dialogue on this topic. If you have any topics you would like us to discuss, be sure to tag me in a post with your question. Join us every Thursday on the Get to Know You Cafe.